I'm Huples Cat. Video 2 on this very popular magazine. This section is on before it happens. The 33 pages of this section promise me that I can get ready for a disaster, I'll be smart in a disaster, the planning I will do will help me thrive, not just survive, in the aftermath of the disaster. So okay, 33 pages is a lot, however, mostly it's pictures. There's hardly any text. Clearly, Popular Mechanics has realised that both thriving after disaster and smart prepping must be very, very easy to learn. Oops, cynical cat popped out. Right from the beginning they show a pepper pantry. This is a typical one that they show. Let us actually have a very hard look at it. They've got stored water, quite a lot of it. However, it is inadequate to store this amount of water for a disaster without a filter, and I don't see one. There's probably around a month to a month and a half of water for one person here. It looks a lot, but actually it isn't. This is obviously more than enough for a short-term issue, but you have to ask yourself, if it's winter, this water might freeze and become useless to you without a decent heater. And also, is storing water in plastic anyway a good idea? Having year-round water sources and a decent filter. This is my backup one. The one I use, and I've used for many years now, is upstairs in my camping gear. I use it for camping. It filters water really fast and deals with everything I need it to deal with in my area. But if you actually have access to year-round water sources and decent filters, this means you're going to spend a lot less cash buying water in a plastic bottle, and you're going to have more space for food. Don't forget chemical tablets as well. Actually very helpful if you have to wander around outside for an extended period after a disaster. Okay, the smart prepper here in Popular Mechanics has stored food. In my opinion, there's far too much chocolate and not enough vegan and dark chocolate. Vegan dark chocolate lasts for years. Milk chocolate goes rancid in a year or two. Now I do like the amount of rice, pasta, dried beans and legumes they have. They have loads and loads of them here. They're going to need a lot of water and power to eat. For short term, you want to store food that doesn't require any additional water or even power if necessary. So rather than tins of salty, fatty spam and soup, you might want to consider something else. This is what I would recommend. Nuts! Portable, easy to eat, full of good stuff. You can have a camping gear stuff like this. Now you have to add boiling water to these ideally, but you can just put water in them and leave them for about 12 hours. This is a very expensive method of storing dehydrated food, but it's way less expensive than storing prepper dehydrated food and generally much more healthy. Baked beans, great idea. Always like these. You need a can opener, don't forget it. They'll go off after about 3 years post-expiry. Cliff bars, these will last 2 or 3 years after expiry. They're actually a very portable thing to have, and actually a good bonus trade item if you want to think about trading in the immediate aftermath. Now if you look at this smart prepper here doesn't have any cereals. This is just wheat. It's actually very good for you. You can eat this raw and you can add water to it. No, don't use milk. What about this as an option? You do have to heat it up, but again you can open the top, add a bit of water and put it in the sun all day, and this will be sort of edible. A more expensive idea. This again does not need to be heated to eat. It's already got the water added. Now why would you go to the expense of getting packaged rice? Well, in a short-term emergency you might not want to cook, and in a long-term emergency it might not be safe to cook for a while. Now I don't know if I've told you this before, but I'm a vegan, so all the stuff I'm showing you is actually plant strong. Again, the water's already added, so you don't have to worry about adding water to it, you just have to worry about warming it up. And you can warm things up very easily without power if you have to. Again, there's no need to add water. Again, there's no need to heat it up unless you want to. And there's no garbage in this, no natural flavours or colourings, no chemicals of any particular amount. It means it won't last as long, but it means it's a lot healthier for you. Lentils is superb food, store as many lentils as you can. In the smart prepper pantry we're looking at, they do store a few tins of black beans. As far as I could tell, they only have salt here as an additive. Really bad idea. Salt's actually sort of useful in a disaster because you're going to be sweating a lot. But where on earth are all the spices? They don't cost a lot and they last forever. Trust me on this, if you're going to eat nothing but beans for a while, you want to have a lot of different spices, not just pepper. I don't even think they have pepper. Now you might think they have adequate oil. They have one container of canola oil. You're actually going to need a lot more than that. What you want to use is extra virgin coconut oil in glass containers. This will last for a lot longer than canola oil or any other type of oil. Vegetables are deficient here and meat processed is overdone. If I was you, I would really limit processed meats and really increase the amount of vegetables you're going to have. This is of course a personal choice, I guess, but poor nutrition is never a good idea, whether in a disaster or before it. Now they appear to have between 7 and 8 jars of peanut butter. They're using Jif, which is a terrible brand. If you look at the labels, always look at the labels. You really don't want to eat Jif peanut butter. You want to use makes that are in glass and only use peanuts. And they're not going to last that long, so you don't really need a huge amount of it. But where's the crackers to put it on? Where are the oatcakes to put it on? Where's the long-lasting bread to put it on? Now, they have a lot of dried milk. This is pointless. You are not currently and never have been a baby cow. Now on this page, they state the disaster plan should begin before you even choose your home. I kind of agree, but for most of us we're going to be in a position where we've already got our home and we have commitments in the area and then we become preppers. There's also going to be multiple constraints in location, location, location. Obviously you should look around your area on foot and in detail. You should check all available maps and ideas and guides from every emergency planning source you can find that's very local. If you can, buy somewhere or relocate away from obvious dangers. It's out and about with Mr. Bear. Is there a history of hurricanes, wildfires, tornadoes? Is it in a flood zone? Look at the big picture called Where I Live. Also, hang out there carefully and safely at night and on weekends. Have a good think about your neighbours. Have a good look at your neighbours before you buy. If you can avoid all risks, I'd be absolutely stunned, amazed and shocked, and you should do a video on that. But knowing possible risks should direct the home purchase and adaptations if already owned. As with most preppers, and indeed myself when I started prepping way back in time, they actually focus their prepping on food to start with. Now they're focusing on dried food and canned soup. The canned soup is okay, I guess. Focus on food that needs no extra water or cooking until you have a 2-week supply for everyone. That's the way to do it. On page 2 of Before It Happens, they again talk about fridges and freezers. They seem obsessed with these electric devices. They don't seem to notice that whatever the disaster is, both fridges and freezers actually cannot function without power, electrical power. Or I guess propane if you've got one of those types of fridge freezers. Then they talk about water, which is as important as shelter in my view. They claim 3 days with no water is maximum. It is not, but often you will die in well under 3 days without any fluids. Realistically speaking, try not to drink any water for the first 8 hours of your day, any fluids at all, and see how you feel. It's going to compromise you rapidly, well before the lack of food does. So they say water purification plants are knocked out by natural disasters. This of course is true. So they tell you to strain the water, but don't tell you how, and boil it for 1 minute, but they don't tell you how to do that if there's no power. Then they add bleach. Okay, just use a water filter. Have 2 of these. I have one for camping and a spare backup reserve one. And strain the water only if it's actually cloudy, and if you do so, use a micro towel to strain it. Remember that if you're going to add bleach, you really don't want to be drinking bleach long term, but anyway, bleach expires in about a year or 2 if it's liquid. And if you're using pool shock, this always struck me as a very iffy proposition long term. And it's your body, I guess. Now they do tell you to have a 3-day supply of water. This is absolutely true. They're saying it's 1 gallon, which is 3.7 litres for civilised people per person per day. I agree. More is, in my opinion, a waste of space unless you're in a desert or it's a very long-term societal issue, in which case any supply runs out eventually. You want to have empty glass containers and plastic containers that's transparent so you can do sodas. And you want to have a really serious think about where you're going to collect water from and how you're going to get it to your house and what you're going to do with it in the house before the disaster ever happens. They recommend Aquapail 1000. This will give you 1,000 gallons, which, if you've been following along, is almost 4,000 litres of fluid. This one filter is good for 18,000 litres of fluid. I'm always going to go with camping and hiking gear that people use and rely on in the wilderness areas. It's always going to outperform so-called prepper gear. It's also always going to be cheaper. We're already at the bottom of page 2 and already obsessing about the internet. Backup electronic data to the cloud. Really? Copy all very important documents in a fireproof safe is an excellent idea and I recommend that, as is videotaping your home slowly and saving it to the internet in case you have a house fire. This is really going to help you with insurance. Oh yeah, they don't even mention insurance. Is your life insurance and property insurance adequate for your risks? Remember, the worst thing for insurance in North America is the fact that a lot of young couples do not insure with life insurance the wife. The wife dies, and this is very sad, but you've got kids. Childcare costs a bomb. Think about it. Always plan for the worst case. Plan for it sanely. Now let's get back to their advice. In a long-term disaster, the cloud will not be there, so your backing up data is not going to help you at all. There's other means of doing it. I recommend a hard passport drive. Keep it simple. Keep it in your own home. Now, you're going to give a flash drive to a friend. Well, you can, but what are you going to tell them to do with it? I don't know. And do you have to drive to the friends? Because again, in a disaster, you're not going to be driving very far. As a retired ICU nurse, I get very excited about first aid, and they have a whole 2 pages devoted to beyond first aid, which is absolutely brilliant, isn't it? However, what I immediately see is terrible, like really bad. Like this is what you should not be using. They claim they've used an ex-Army Special Forces medic. Now, these people specialise in fighting with wounds and evacuating to real healthcare, and this shows here. In fact, anybody out there with specialised medical experience in the armed forces, realistically looking at this, if you think this is okay, you really need help. They show duct tape. Duct tape is impossible to remove from skin without reopening the wound. Do not use ever on the skin. Super glue. This is impossible to remove from wounds without damaging the tissue. It needs very special chemicals and treatment to actually get it out of the wound. The whole time it's in the wound, it's going to completely stop wound healing. It also, as a bonus, puts a debris against the skin and the vascular area and doesn't let it come out, so it can't ooze. Do not ever use pliers. Yeah, you can use them to remove splinters or nails from a wound, but you need to boil them first. They should be sterile. I'd like much finer tweezers for this, possibly a magnifying glass in a decent light. Now think about it. If you're removing nails from a wound, are you prepping for natural disasters or nationwide IED attacks? Is this Civil War time? Prep for reality. Now, I've done an entire video on this. Female products, tampons, inserted into a wound. Never, ever, ever do this. It's ridiculous. What do tampons do, ladies? They wick blood. They don't stop it bleeding, so it's not going to really help. What happens to tampons when they get wet from blood or fluids? They swell and they swell and they swell. They're not sterile, they're designed to absorb blood into this product rather than stop it flowing into the product. They expand when wet in wounds, literally killing tissue. Use as directed. In fact, store them for females you come across that might need them in a disaster. Never ever use them inside a wound or even over it. There's way better things to use, including t-shirts that have just been laundered. Now they show you a disaster first aid kit. Now anybody who's watched this channel for a while will know that I'm immediately going to say this is woefully inadequate and far too small. You need way more than this. Even worse, a text tells you to stock aspirin. No, unless it's a heart attack. You will only ever use Tylenol only. Sorry, Mr. Trump, but you're dead wrong about Tylenol. Both aspirin and Advil encourage bleeding. They actually make wounds bleed more, so you get bigger bruising, more swelling. Tylenol additionally lasts forever. Both aspirin and NSAIDs go bad in only a few years. Again, the survival special forces medic appears not to know emergency care basics. Anybody giving aspirin to a trauma is a complete idiot. I'm going to say this in words that people can understand, even trauma medics. Giving aspirin to a trauma victim is a complete disaster and totally wrong. It's never going to be right to do that. Now, they tell you to stock up before others do. Well, obviously that's completely correct, but I stocked up years ago and the disaster hasn't happened yet, so I'm currently, yet again, moving my stocks around and changing it and looking at expiry dates, but, you know, it keeps me occupied. Don't stock massive amounts of one thing. Stock little amounts, pretty much everything. Charge everything you can every 6 months. Now, they suggest a deep cell battery and an inverter. I suggest a few solar panels. BioLite high-end stores as well as charges, and I keep the cables here, and I use a lot of BioLite gear so I won't have a problem using different bits of equipment in a disaster. Now, they suggest having a lot of empty gas cans and filling them before the storm. This is an okay idea, I guess, but not every storm is forecast, and you'll usually find that the gas stations are going to be very, very crowded if a storm is known to be coming. You see gasoline goes bad in a few months. That's not true. I keep it routinely for 6 months, put it in the car and replace it. I just use normal gasoline. I don't add anything to it. Now, they state to secure missiles, which is a great idea, but for most people, your neighbours are very close to you. So if you actually go to the stage of using storm shutters, this will stop your neighbours' lawn chairs breaking your windows in a windstorm event. Go around your property now and look for anything that can be thrown through a window. Do you have a lot of small stones right by a window that can just be picked up and lobbed through? I'd not be surprised if you have a lot of choice about how to smash windows. Now, they say to get a pool pump that works off-grid. This is actually a good idea if you can drain the water, if you can store or get gasoline. There's a whole bunch of ifs to this. I'd much rather use a one-way valve on my systems. Know your location. Walk and bike locally. If it's not safe to do that, you need to move. Know if 2 kilometres northwest of you is downhill or uphill. Know if dams above the watercourse near you hold a lot or a little of water. Think about the floodplains. Think about possible new floodplains if there's too much water compared to what there normally is. For those who watch this channel for some time, you know I'm heavily into hiking and physical fitness. It's a really great idea to be actually physically fit, ready for disasters, apart from it's great for your lifestyle anyway. Now, they do plan for pets, which is always good. If you don't plan for pets, you might as well not bother. The Fido here is shown camping. Yes, they've took a dog, specifically a hunting dog, camping. The dog has no collar on and no leash. Do not take a dog camping and off leash. You never know what they're going to find, porcupines being the least of it, even for a good dog. What's worse is they stated that 80% of separated pets never got back to their owners after Hurricane Katrina. Not mentioned, of course, is having a crate large enough to be comfortable in for hours for your pet. Not mentioned is having a pet emergency equipment bag with food in it and stuff like that, and vet details. You also might want to have lots of photographs of the pet so you can put them up in case the pet gets lost. That's actually a good idea for anybody in the family, including yourself. Now, it costs you absolutely no money, but everybody watching this video should be able to go and shut down the gas supply, the water supply and the electricity supply into their home right now. If you can't do that, that's something you might want to leave this video and look up online and figure out how to do it in your home. You might even need to get a special tool that you're going to put right by the valve so you can turn the valve. What I'd add to you as a prepper is you should be able to do all those three things in the dark and after a tree has hit the house. It may not be ideal conditions is what I'm trying to say here. Practice for worst case, not just best. Again, if you recharge your device before a forecast storm, that's a great idea. Or like me, you recharge every 6 months normally. They do promote an external generator, but the noise and failure is common with these. If you have a portable gasoline generator, once you set it up, which is a little bit issue-ish, once you've set it up, I can guarantee if you don't use it continually, it's not going to work a year from now. Getting adequate gasoline and or propane might also be a huge issue, especially in a long duration event. Power banks are a good idea, and a better option if you're in a crowded area. You start to run a gasoline generator in a long duration power outage, your neighbours are going to notice and they're going to want some of your electricity. If you can give it to them, that's superb. They might not want to. You're not going to go far wrong focusing on solar recharging for your devices. Now, I know, I can hear you all saying, but Huples, in a nuclear winter or a volcanic super eruption, you won't be able to rely on solar. Quite correct. But you're also going to have a lot more problems than we're addressing today in Popular Mechanics, or as I normally do on my channel. Now again, you want to adapt here. Your radio and your flashlight can work for an hour a day, day after day, week after week, month after month. That's going to serve you much better than a flashlight that works really well for 24 hours and then you run out of batteries. What they actually show here is using a battery and an inverter to power up a home socket. This is a very demanding way to use the power. Very, very inefficient. And using it to juice up a portable generator would be even more inefficient. Trying to replicate normality, that power socket's going to work for you, is not the best idea. Now they then devote 8 pages to wood. Assistance from trees when you're looking for help. Looking up is a good place to start. And I fully recommend that you do look up. Before we read the article and start tree hugging, I'm going to say make sure trees are nowhere near your home and can spread wildfire onto the home or fall onto the home if there's a windstorm. Fundamentally, have a good look at your trees. Big trees need to come down, get an arborist, don't do it yourself. The art of firewood. Yes, firewood is essential, but using it outdoors on a campfire cook is not efficient. It's going to take a lot of work and can be an issue if weather or neighbours are unpleasant. Living in Canada, I remain shocked by the fact most new homes have no wood stove. In a power outage in January, it will soon become unlivable. The expert then talks about felling and processing a tree. It takes all spring. In a power outage, one tree won't be enough for one home during one winter. He stores 5 cords of wood. Utterly impossible for most people to do. I can do it, can you? So he continues onwards. Never mentions chainsaws or dangers. Nice story though. Useful? Not in the slightest. I live off grid and I have no time for romance about it. The first sentence, by the way, of this story is, on a crisp December dawn, my sons and I walked down the gentle slope behind our house. So is there anything of use here? Well, they show 3 cuts to fell a tree with an axe. They show a big tree. Do not do this ever. Why? The calories spent far too high. You can get smaller amounts of wood, fallen wood. There's lots of ways of getting wood without taking down a huge big tree. Even for the experts, spinal cord injuries and death and head injuries are very common when they're chopping down large trees. Remember, you're looking for pieces of wood of the right width, but not the right length. Now, they do helpfully offer me 5 ways to improve my firewood. I've done 1 and 2 and I find they do work, but I also find it utterly unnecessary. But if you like decorative piles of wood around your place, go for it. Number 3, I did try this and I've seen lots of videos promoting it online. You never see the axe hitting the tyre and then you. I found it really dangerous and I will never use this method. 4 is actually great advice. Smaller is always going to be better, but using a small sled or a large one to move the wood would actually be a good idea. Save your back in a disaster. You've got to work hard anyways. Use labour-saving devices. Yep, Popular Mechanics is in full bromance mode with trees. Now they're going to tell me 3 tree cuts I should know. Cut 1, yes, but they've made a mistake here. You use cut 2 first. Cut 3. In a disaster, never ever attempt to fell any tree that's like this one shown. The fact there is no disaster. You shouldn't be doing this anyway, in my opinion. The two things you really needed in this entire 8-page section they have forgotten about is 1, how to safely free a chainsaw or an axe blade trapped in a tree. Critical, trust me, I've done it. And 2, how to avoid chainsaw injuries. Now I find page 41 very funny. How to forage for firewood. No eye protection, chopping aggressively, surrounded by deadfall that doesn't need splitting after being sawn to the right length. But oh no, our urban survivor is smashing into huge amounts of wood with an axe. Now they have 4 recommendations to forage for firewood, so let's look at these. Now number 1 is true, but in a disaster, burning pine or birch in your home, stove or winter can easily cause a chimney fire. It burns fast as well as producing a large amount of creosote. Think about what you're actually using in the fireplace. 2, for sure it might be wrong. It's easy to test it. I use actually a lot of fallen wood that's been on the ground for a while. It's actually good if it's solid still. If it's very lightweight and crumbles under your fingers, it's not going to be much use to you, is it? But deadfall is always going to be easy to get, chopping down and felling large trees. Now number 3 is sage advice if you're on a camping trip. To warm a home all winter? Not so much. They're quite right, hardwoods are absolutely the best ones to use. Have you ever cut down a maple tree or even tried to process maple into wood for your fireplace without electronic and gasoline powered saws? Alright, we're still on wood here. Now they're giving me the BTUs of wood. This is incredible. I can't believe Donald Trump is still allowing British thermal units to be used for wood. They need to have an American thermal unit. This is a handy guide if you're actually specifically buying wood, I guess, or you have wood on your property. Now they give me 6 signs that my wood is well seasoned. Again, in a disaster, I'm going to burn what I need to burn. Now, having spent some time telling us how to stack wood properly, the wood shown here is exactly like I store mine. Wood that doesn't smell is grey, light, wrinkled, no bark, and sounds hollow. This is okay wood. In a long-term disaster, you're going to be thinking about the wood you're going to burn 2 years from today. Before we leave our long section on trees, I would say, please think about your health and safety in a disaster. It's not woke, it's critical. Alright, now we're going to get into before it happens. This is going to be absolutely amazing to you. It stunned and staggered me. I have to make a whiskey torch. Yes, a whiskey torch. Now be aware, first off, no matter what you're making in this type of thing, these are huge fire risks for you. And when it's dark, you should probably be asleep, not burning stuff like this. What I would say, if you're going to go to the trouble of having tiki fuel and a tiki wick, you might want to get a purposely designed tiki burner. And let's face it, open flame is never really going to be a good option. Now the Breeze rocket stove, these are easy to use, etc, etc. Now I use BioLite. I have 3 BioLite stoves. I actually have 4 if you include the huge grill I have to do huge amounts of fish if I needed to eat fish in a disaster. 3 safety tips. Move it away from the door. And angle it so when the wind blows it won't get onto the power supply, and I do have a hose are available. Now you can make these rocket stoves and they should be external to the home. This should never ever ever be in the home. For me, get a commercial rocket stove. Many of them are junk. Now Popular Mechanics is going to do the section when it hits. They're going to tell me what to expect and how to survive, no matter the location or situation. This is a huge claim, and it's clearly going to be untrue. You're going to need luck to survive any event. I don't feel smarter, and I don't feel safe prepping the way they're telling me to. There's a couple of things in there I liked, but mostly I thought it was terrible advice. But that's just me. So thanks for watching this video. Next time, we're going to survive after it hits us. This has been a 2025 Fat Cat production.